The feedback I have had from my anxiety videos has been amazing. People are telling me that I'm changing their lives, which I'm so happy to hear because that's exactly what I set out to do. But why do I want to help people with their anxiety disorders? Well, I'm going to tell you in this video. And it's going to be the hardest video I've made because it's going to be about my own journey with anxiety. And it's deeply personal. I'm going to tell you about my own struggles with anxiety, how I overcame it, why I trained in psychotherapy, and why I make videos to help you overcome your anxiety. And you will learn a lot about how anxiety disorders develop. My anxiety issues were, well, a little weird.
Not weird, unusual.
Yes, unusual, thanks. But the principles of how anxiety disorders develop and how they can be reversed are the same whatever type of anxiety you have. So please don't skip ahead because you might miss something important. A lot of anxiety problems stem from our childhood, so let's look at my childhood. I actually had a wonderful childhood with great loving parents. I'm not going to go into details, but there is some anxiety in my family, a bit of social anxiety and a bit of health anxiety. So there may be some level of genetic predisposition in me, or possibly some learned behaviours. As a child, I did experience some performance anxiety around things like exams, swimming tests and school plays, but that's not unusual in children. But my first real experience with anxiety started at high school, where I experienced some bullying from one boy. He would mock me in front of all his friends. And although the bullying was usually more verbal than physical, I was terrified of him. After a few months, I was a nervous wreck and dreaded going to school. At age 11, I remember lying awake at night saying to myself, everything's going to be all right, hundreds of times over. Like the more I said it, the more likely it was that everything would be all right. Bizarrely, I would also say a few times, everything is not going to be all right. But as long as the positive statement outnumbered the negative, somehow that would make the bullying stop. This was, of course, completely illogical, but we see this almost superstitious or ritualistic behaviour in OCD in adults. So it was my first real signs of anxiety. Though I did not go on to develop OCD, it did give me an insight into how OCD works, which was useful when I treated people for OCD later in life. The bullying lasted 2 years, and after that things got better, but it had a lasting effect on me. I became sensitive to anyone poking fun at me, even if it was just harmless banter. I guess the bullying had caused a little bit of social anxiety. In an effort to try and look cool, at 15 I started smoking, but I always worried what I was doing to my health. At 18 I started coughing up blood and had to go for a lung x-ray. And there I was, sat with a lot of old men in a waiting room, convincing myself that my life was over before it even started. This was my first sign of health anxiety. It turned out just to be bronchitis, so I gave up smoking and the symptoms went away. But the experience did leave me with an awareness of my own mortality. I hated my first job, and the boss was always telling me how useless I was, which really didn't help my performance anxiety. But at 20, I found a job that I really liked, and I was determined to do well. But I found myself worrying about deadlines and whether I was doing a good enough job. Yes, the performance anxiety was becoming a problem again. So I pushed myself really hard and worked a lot of hours. My career started progressing with a couple of promotions, but I started having sleep problems and seeing other physical anxiety symptoms. I developed a nervous throat clearing habit. Whenever I used a public toilet, I would find that I could not go if there were others around. I know now that this is just something that can happen when you are stressed or anxious. For some people, if the body thinks you're in danger, it shuts down the valve that allows you to pee. But back then, I was extremely embarrassed about it, and thought if anyone found out, I would be ridiculed and mocked. You can see here how my early life experience of being bullied, combined with my tendency towards performance anxiety, had created this problem. There was some good news in this period, though. I found a solution to my nervous throat clearing habit. I bought a book on self-hypnosis, used what I'd learned, and a year-long habit miraculously disappeared overnight. And this is where my interest in psychotherapy began. So by my mid-20s, I had a little bit of social anxiety, a little bit of general anxiety, which mainly involved worrying about work, and still a fair bit of performance anxiety. The stress of work also triggered IBS, which gave me something else to worry about. But the anxiety that started to dominate was about my shy bladder. It continued to get worse, and I did what everyone does in the early stages of an anxiety disorder. And it doesn't matter whether it's panic disorder, generalized anxiety, health anxiety, social anxiety, or OCD. I started using safety behaviours. Here are some of the things that I did. I would watch toilets to make sure no one was in there before I used them. I would minimise my fluid intake to the point of dehydration to avoid having to use toilets. When going out socially, I would choose venues that had quiet toilets or very large toilets. The problem with these and other safety behaviours is that they reinforce the belief that the threat is real, which makes the physical symptoms worse. For me, that was bladder lock, but for others, their safety behaviours might cause panic attacks, chest pains, tension headaches, or the shakes. The type of anxiety that I had developed is called pyuresis, or shy bladder syndrome, and it's a subtype of social anxiety disorder. But the strange thing was, by now, thanks to practicing self-hypnosis, I could deliver presentations to large groups of people with very little anxiety. I wasn't socially anxious, but a public toilet could still give me a full-blown panic attack. So I turned to alcohol. I found that with a couple of drinks in me, my bladder worked fine. Well, at least it did at first, but as time went on, I found I had to drink more and more, until even when I was completely drunk, my bladder would lock and my heart would race. This continued through my 20s and 30s, and during times of stress, the health anxiety would also surface. While working in a sales job, I became very concerned that I was holding a mobile phone to my head all day, to the point that my head would feel warm. And there is brain cancer in my family, so I was worried it could give me a tumour. So I started Googling links between brain tumours and mobile phone radiation. As you will know if you follow my channel, this is the worst thing you can do if you have health anxiety. I became convinced that I had a brain tumour, and somehow an irregular shape that I'd spotted in my eye seemed to confirm the presence of a brain tumour. Yeah, bizarre, isn't it? But then you are looking at a man who was also obsessed with toilets. But that's what anxiety does to you. It is, after all, a mental illness. Also in this period, I became aware of friends and family with anxiety problems. When a family member started having panic attacks, I put her in touch with a friend who was a hypnotherapist, and her panic attacks soon stopped. I later used the same hypnotherapist after I went 4 days without sleep, after experiencing some bullying from a company director and the loss of my job, which also coincided with the end of my marriage. But the hypnosis helped and I slept like a baby for months afterwards. I decided I wanted this gift. Not only could I help others, I might be able to fix my shy bladder and other anxiety problems. It took me another 10 years to have enough money to do the hypnotherapy training, but I had some amazing initial results. I cured a number of people of their phobias. But when it came to anxiety disorders like panic disorder, it was not so successful, particularly if they had had panic attacks for many years. And it also had no effect on my shy bladder syndrome, which by now was so bad I could be bursting to go to the toilet and in pain, but my damn bladder would still lock if there was anyone around. It's amazing what anxiety can do to the body. I was also still getting occasional bouts of health anxiety. So to help myself and the people I was unable to help with hypnotherapy, I decided to train in CBT and psychotherapy. CBT gave me a real understanding of how anxiety worked, and how my own behaviours were making my anxiety problems worse, and I could see exactly the same problem in all my anxiety clients. So I was able to help them with their panic attacks, social anxiety, OCD, or whatever their anxiety problems were. CBT changed my life. But I had struggled with my anxiety problems for 20 years, and anxiety disorders don't just disappear overnight. It took many years of hard work applying CBT principles in my life, including desensitization, reduction of safety behaviours, and behavioural experiments. But now I no longer fear public toilets, and my bladder behaves itself 99% of the time, no matter how many people are around. I no longer worry about my health, and I generally worry less about everything. When I do go through difficult times in my life, as we all do, I either start using CBT and self-hypnosis, or if necessary, I will consult another CBT therapist, as getting someone else's perspective can help you see things that you can't see on your own. So why do I make videos to help you with your anxiety? Well, I wish that all those years ago, when my anxiety problems began, I had something like my channel that would have taught me that avoidance, safety behaviours, and alcohol were making my anxiety worse, and that there is a much more healthier, positive, and effective way to manage anxiety. And if you persevere with CBT, you can get amazing results. It really can change your life. And I want to spread that message. I know that many of you cannot access or afford therapy, or are like me, who was too embarrassed to seek help. I stopped practicing as a therapist a few years ago because it's very hard to make a living out of it in a country with a free health service. And working all day for a company that makes spacecraft leaves me too mentally tired to do therapy in the evenings. But I will continue to make videos to help you with your anxiety. All I ask in return is that you like my videos if you find that they help you. And keep watching and using what I teach you, because it might just change your life. Take care.